You are about to witness history in the making.
I'll have you sent to Siberia.
Who loves you, baby?
Nonsense.
Hello and welcome to my Model Corner Project 33. In this voyage we undertake a ship model build of the World War I Dreadnought SMS Viribus Unitis. This particular kit was selected by a great supporting behind-the-scenes viewer of the Max Afterburner channel. So Steven, this one's for you, mate. This is only the second time I have ever approached a plastic model based on a World War I subject, and this is also an opportune chance to educate myself on this vessel and its surrounding history with the kind assistance of Naval Historian Andrew W. He's created a beautiful 3D computer model of the Viribus Unitis, as well as hosting an amazing website with a comprehensive look at the Tegethoff class. A link to his pages is in the description below, as well as at the end of this video. I highly recommend a visit. You will be in for quite a treat.
It's time we open this box. You will do no such thing. Give me the key.
Here you are, Doctor.
Our first step is to make the hull halves. As you may have noted from my model nostalgia video and other ship kit videos, my first love in the hobby were war vessels when I was a boy. However, had I come upon this kit back then, I would have been disappointed that it was not a full one-piece hull that I could easily float in my bathroom. In those times, I always did a poor job on multi-piece hulls, and invariably, the ship would immediately sink to the bottom of Lake Bathtub. And here we'll randomly open some portholes. The dry fit check looks good, but it needs a little help. After the curing was complete, some sanding of the keel was performed, and then a quick test of how the deck also fit to the hull established that everything was sound, and we've passed the main hurdle where we might have had some problems with the model. So, are you thinking what I'm thinking, for old time's sake? Just a few more holes to be drilled out through the deck for the midship artillery station rangefinders, and also 2 capstans near the number 3 turret barbette. Moving on to some photo etch for the decorative stern windows seemed like it would be difficult at first, then I thought it would be fine. No, they were difficult. They didn't fit all that well. They popped out a few times, and when trying to correct them, they became clogged with glue and paint. So you'll see that they appear differently throughout the build until the end when final touch-ups were carried out. These photo-etched torpedo netting deck pieces were also troublesome, as the overall shape included stems on either end, leaving very little bonding surface of the thin brass to the plastic hull. There's a tendency to pick up the hull by the sides when working on model ships, and in this case the CA glue may break after repeated flexing of the photo etch if you're not careful. This can be more of a problem after the final product paints are applied, and such a separation can ruin such work already laid down. As always, we apply a black shading primer coat. This allows for quick identification of defects in any seam line work, provides a base coat for the next paint layers, and sets us up for adding special effects such as shadows, wear and tear, and making the model more realistic in a large-scale exterior sense. A notable effect using this foundation on the funnels in particular will be pointed out when we reach that step in the video. No borders for the 3 paint colors are molded on the hull. Small pieces of tape are applied to guide the longer strips of masking tape, keeping the boundaries evenly spaced along the curvature of the ship. In the paint guide instructions, the boot stripe is displayed as a more conventional red than the unusual and more accurate magenta that Andrew Wilkie rendered in his computer model. Initially uncomfortable to take that leap, I first used red, but then thinking better of it, the color was later redone. The original clips of the red are integrated here to demonstrate what this three-color combination looks like if anyone wants to go that route. Later on, the boot stripe was remasked, the red paint sanded down a bit, then some marbled white was airbrushed on, and finally magenta was distributed over the sections. This is a short segment presenting the initial attempts to clean up the ornamental PE windows by scraping away the paint to reveal the gold gilding on the lower halves. This area was continually reworked throughout the project. Although we have torpedo netting decks and booms, there is nothing included in the kit to represent the nets themselves. It was decided to use 8 copper wire strands from junk electrical lamp cord tightly wound together using safety wire pliers and then sprayed with black enamel paint. In this reference image, we have light reflecting off the netlings, and to imitate this glinting, some aluminum paint was dabbed on using some foam rubber. The rolled up net wire was firmly held down by alligator clips and CA glue used to affix them to the storage decking. After transforming the main deck to NATO black, we can mask off areas such as the barbettes, hatches, and fixtures on the deck for supplementing subtle painting effects. And as we apply the tan, we want to continue to airbrush unevenly to simulate lighting differences in the wooden boards, wear, and staining. Similarly, we add slightly irregular gray to the turret bases and other deck fixtures. For the circular shapes on the deck, it was easier to hand brush them in. A detail wash to the deck was first broadly added, then wiped down and cleaned with paper towels and adjusted closely around features using cotton swabs. All this begins to alter the deck, highlighting elements of individual deck paneling, fittings, creating hints of shadow, and emphasizing details of the hatches and circular skylights. The instructions recommend that you do not glue the 15 cm casemate guns so that they may be rotated. However, the central bore is much too small for the pegs on the hull. You should drill out a larger hole if you want to be able to move the guns and before adding the barrels to prevent breakage during this modification. Let's begin constructing the many different superstructure items, getting them ready for the final assembly of this ship. We'll be retracing the same steps for each in the painting and detailing of every section. It may seem tedious, but these steps are the building blocks in the whole of the creative process. The brass photo etch in this kit seemed especially delicate compared to other sets I've dealt with in the past. Fearing having to do additional repair tasks just to complete each piece, some parts were painted prior to manipulation to strengthen them somewhat, even though some chipping would require touching up later.
Why, this is incredible. What?
A photo etch bending tool was finally removed for the first time from its original packaging after many years to handle the smallest brass pieces. Adding the PE rails as a single long piece, we discovered is slightly too large circumferentially for the plastic platform as we glue it on. This created a lopsided railing as I tried to force fit it on. Later on, most of this was straightened out. After this event, all other long photo etch parts were cut down into more manageable pieces that created additional steps to ensure alignment, as well as finally trimming away minute parts of the brass to better fit decks and platforms. In the manual, it simply says bend this piece. This task should have been explained in more detail. The solution is shown here after having to think about it for a minute.
Are you a scientist?
An engineer, but I try to keep up with things.
Many hood fans go here. One of them actually flew out of the tweezers across the room, but amazingly it was found, and so not a single piece was lost.
There's a scientific explanation.
Much like aircraft, we have red and green navigation lights representing left and right respectively on the midship artillery stations. The forward funnel has this molded steam whistle and piping that aids in distinguishing the different smokestacks. As we apply the gray, we ease up on the airbrush trigger to leave more of the underlying black shading foundation to replicate the look of soot residue buildup just under the funnel cap. Pretty effective. As with the navigation bridge, these railings did not match the plastic part, and this was before I decided to start cutting lengthy photo etch pieces into smaller segments. Once the central searchlight platform was installed and the funnels also placed nearby on the main deck, these railings became fairly difficult to see anyway. The wooden seating and framework of these boats were either hand-brushed or airbrushed on, depending on if they were single-molded pieces or required a couple of steps to build. The larger utility boats required more detailing using different colors. The 13.5-ton motorboat has its larger housing on top, and initially the side windows were hand-painted poorly. Later the boat was removed from its place on the main deck, repainted white, and then black decal squares were applied to imitate the windows, so you'll see an improvement later on. For bending the birdcage crown, it was found better to apply pressure at about 1 mm below the top of each bar to create the curved shape. Not perfect, but easier than it looks. Although not exciting, the stand is important to display our Dreadnought. Avoiding an uneven and sloppy paint job on the nameplate lettering, we can use the same technique as we've done previously with aircraft cockpits. Paint it black, and using a sanding stick, carefully remove the paint to reveal sharply defined text.
Look for yourself.
Trumpeter does not provide railings for the main gun turrets. Seizing railings from our PE stash, we can add some more detail here. The super firing turrets number 2 and number 3 have more rail work, thus they are emphasized more in this compilation. The number 1 and number 4 lower turrets only have the side rails as seen in the lower right corner of your screen. A couple of the photo etch pieces for the boat crane are manufactured incorrectly, and all the parts were small and fragile. To also add a little more scratch detail, Easy Line is added to represent the boat crane's boom to mast cable. After painting the anchor chains, we slowly thread them down their paths and then secure them with a tap of CA glue using a metal applicator wand. We are now finally ready to add all our superstructure sub-assemblies. We'll take a look at some of the rigging work here. Each time it's about the same. Dab a little bit of CA glue to where the cable will go, allow the one end to cure for a time, then dab CA glue again to the point where the cable's other end will attach. After you're satisfied everything is secure, cut off the excess. For lines going from the deck to the mast, a very tiny spot of glue is touched through the deck and then poked with the end of some easy line and then allowed to air dry. After that, attach the other end to the appropriate location. It always seems it wants to stick where you don't want it to and not stick where you want it to.
Oh, that part is true enough.
Working our way out from the center of the ship, we attach our 7cm guns and midship artillery control stations. As with the turrets, this kit provides no railings for the circumference of the main deck.
That's not possible.
So we have to reach into our stash once again. Extra thin CA glue is used to fix the rails to the deck, and capillary action will allow the glue to flow along the bottom of the railing pieces. We can also apply additional CA glue with a sewing needle attached to a pin vise to increase the strength of the bonds. In the spans that only have an upper rail at the bits and chocks, we can use small lengths of easy line to bridge the gap. We have many torpedo net booms to install, 30 in total. Various davits are attached to the deck, and then all our service boats are fastened on. We have the 5 anchors to install, 2 on the stern and 3 at the bow. For ease of attachment, the bow anchor shank may be cut down prior to inserting into the hawse pipe. However, they went in without much difficulty, and it's nice to know that they're in there as a whole piece. Adding slightly dissimilar ratios of yellow and red oil paint, we can add our rust streaks on the side of the hull, which give this model ship some realistic character. For our sea salt, we randomly dab on white oil paint and draw down the beads. After the lighter fluid thinner dries, there's a pleasant general haze as well as streaking duplicating uneven salt concentrations left behind as the ocean water evaporated. Another nice little effect we can control. As we get closer to the end, I just wanted to remind you to visit Andrew Wilkie's site on the Viribus Unitis and check out his 3D renderings along with many other web pages of material. His virtual modeling is highly detailed and far richer than we can include on this 350 scale kit. Andrew's website was much the time saver, providing guidance for paint colors and hard to see features not clear in the Trumpeter instructions. If you'd like to have a comprehensive hard copy of his computer model, there is a book he co-authored along with the late Mr. Prasky available out there. The Austro-Hungarian Navy flag tops it all off. We're coming to the end of this episode and about ready to launch this Dreadnought out to sea. I hope you'll join us for Project 34 in the future, which will be another dedication model build video. Take care, and we'll see you later.